At family dinner, I smiled and said, "I can't wait for our vacation." My father laughed. "Emma, that trip is for family. You're not coming." Everyone laughed. My stepmother covered her mouth. My sister studied resort photos I had helped pay for. I nodded, set down my napkin, and walked out, hiding my shaking hands. 3 days later, Dad tried to take $6,000 from my card. The transaction failed. I sent 3 words, "pay without me." Then my phone exploded with calls. But the real shock wasn't that they needed my money. It was who removed my name and what they left attached. My name is Emma Collins, and for most of my life, being called independent was just my family's polite way of saying I should need less. My mother died when I was 12. 2 years later, Dad married Susan. She moved into our house with lemon perfume, labeled storage bins, and a habit of straightening every picture frame before guests arrived. When Olivia was born, the house changed around her. Her school photos filled the hallway. Her dance medals hung near the kitchen. I was usually behind the camera, making sure everyone else looked happy. Dad loved telling people I was mature. What he meant was that I learned not to ask. When I needed help with college, he said Olivia was still young and expensive. When Olivia wanted private lessons, new clothes, or a summer program, he called it an investment in her future. I worked weekends, took extra shifts, and told myself it made me stronger. By 31, I was a financial analyst with a steady income, a small apartment near downtown, and a habit of checking every receipt twice. That was probably why Dad started calling me whenever something went wrong. First, it was a car repair, then a medical bill, then plane tickets for a family visit I could not attend. He always said, "I'll pay you back next month." Next month rarely came. 5 years earlier, after Dad had a health scare, I added him as an authorized user on one of my travel cards. It was supposed to be for emergencies, a hospital parking garage, a prescription, a hotel if he got stranded. Over time, emergencies became dinners, gas, holiday shopping, and expenses Susan described as temporary. Whenever I questioned a charge, Dad reminded me how much raising a child cost. "You're doing well now," he would say. Family helps family. I wanted to believe that sentence worked both ways. 2 months before the dinner, Dad called me on a Sunday morning. I could hear Susan running the blender in the background. "We need a real family vacation," he said. "Somewhere warm, no stress, all of us together." I felt 12 years old again, standing outside the living room while everyone posed for a photo. So I said yes too quickly. I compared flights, found a beachfront resort in Florida, and used my points to lower the cost. Susan sent me a list of room preferences. Olivia texted links to boat tours, spa packages, and a private dinner she said would be perfect for her content. No one asked what I wanted to do. Still, I paid the deposit. Daniel noticed. "You're planning the whole trip," he said one night, watching me scroll through rates at the kitchen counter. "Has anyone asked which room you want?" I laughed it off. Then Susan emailed the itinerary. Every name was there except mine. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then told myself it was probably a mistake. I needed it to be a mistake, because the other possibility was unbearable. They had invited my credit limit on vacation, while quietly deciding I did not belong there anymore. The dinner happened the following Friday at Dad and Susan's house. I brought a small travel guide I had picked up during lunch, the kind with glossy photos of white beaches and little blue maps folded into the back. I had even marked a seafood place near the resort because Dad loved grilled snapper. The house smelled like roast chicken, butter, and Susan's citrus candles. Olivia was already at the table, scrolling through photos of the hotel pool. "This balcony would be perfect at sunset," she said, turning her phone toward Jason. I already planned 3 outfits. Susan carried in a bowl of potatoes and avoided looking at me. I noticed there were printed schedules beside every plate except mine. Still, I told myself she had forgotten. Halfway through dinner, Olivia started talking about a boat tour. Dad asked whether everyone had renewed their passports, even though Florida did not require them. They laughed at his mistake. I smiled and lifted my glass. "I can't wait for our vacation." Dad looked at Susan. Susan looked at Olivia. Then Dad folded over laughing. "Emma, that trip is for family. "You're not coming." For a second, I thought I had misheard him. Then Olivia laughed too, loud and sharp. Susan covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. Even Aunt Ruth gave a confused little chuckle. The fork in my hand pressed into my palm. "What do you mean?" I asked. Dad wiped his eyes. "You have your own life, your own apartment. Daniel, this is for the people who are actually part of the household." I looked at Susan. "Then why did you ask me to plan it?" "You're good at finding deals," she said softly. "We thought you'd be happy to help." Olivia leaned back in her chair. "Don't make this awkward." "Emma, you know how busy you are." Busy. That was the word they used whenever they did not want me around. I looked at the resort photos on Olivia's phone. The room upgrade, the private dinner, the spa package, all charged to my card. They laughed again when Dad said I could enjoy the pictures afterward. They laughed, loudly. I set my napkin beside my plate. "Good night," I said. No one followed me. The hallway felt colder than the dining room. I passed a framed picture from a family trip to Arizona. Dad, Susan, and Olivia stood beneath a red rock arch. I had taken the picture. Outside, the car seat was freezing against my legs. My hands shook so badly I dropped my keys. Then I opened my banking app. I froze Dad's card. I requested a new account number. Before I drove away, an email arrived from the resort. My name had been removed from the guest list 7 days earlier. My card had not. Susan had approved the change herself, then requested that my card remain on file for final payment. That was when I knew this was not a mistake. They had planned to leave me behind and send my money in my place. For the next 3 days, I moved through my life like someone had turned the volume down. At work, numbers blurred on my screen. I answered emails, joined meetings, and smiled when people spoke to me. Then I would hear Dad's laugh again. Not the words, the laugh. That was the part I could not forget. Daniel found me at the kitchen table after midnight, still wearing my office clothes. The travel guide lay open beside my laptop. I had torn out the page with the resort map without remembering doing it. He sat across from me. "Do you want them in your life?" he asked quietly. "Or are you afraid they'll leave if you stop paying?" I looked at him. That question hurt because I already knew the answer. The next morning, I called Rachel. She met me at a coffee shop near my office, where the espresso machine hissed behind us and rain streaked the front window. I brought statements, receipts, and every message I could find. We started with the obvious charges: family dinners, gas, airfare. Then the pattern widened: spa appointments for Susan, clothing purchases for Olivia, a weekend hotel bill from a trip I had never heard about, a restaurant charge on my birthday from a dinner I had not been invited to. By the time Rachel finished adding everything, the total was close to $20,000. Some of it I had agreed to, some of it I had not. That distinction mattered. "I'm not trying to take back gifts," I said. Rachel nodded. "Then don't. Just stop them from turning access into permission." On the third morning, my phone lit up during a meeting. Declined transaction. Cash advance request. $6,000. Dad's authorized card. I stared at the alert until my manager asked if I was okay. Then the calls started. Dad, Susan, Olivia, Dad again. By lunch, I had 19 missed calls. Susan wrote that the final payment was due in hours. Olivia said I was sabotaging her work. Dad left a voicemail saying I was making the entire family lose the trip. No one mentioned the dinner. No one apologized. When Dad finally reached me, his voice filled my car through the speakers. "What did you do? I removed your access." "You can't do that. It's my account. You're costing us the vacation." I gripped the steering wheel. Which family silence? Then he said, "This is not the time to be sensitive." Something inside me went still. He was not sorry I had been humiliated. He was scared his payment had failed. I ended the call and typed 3 words: "Pay without me." Then I contacted the bank, removed him permanently, and scheduled a meeting with an attorney. That afternoon, Dad invited the whole family to dinner. This time, I said yes. He thought a crowded room would shame me into surrendering. He did not know I had spent those 3 days learning exactly what the truth could finally prove. The second family dinner felt colder than the first. Same table, same candle, same photographs. But this time, I did not sit at the end. I took the chair across from Dad. Daniel sat beside me, silent. Dad had invited Susan, Olivia, Jason, Aunt Ruth, and cousins I barely saw. He wanted witnesses. He wanted pressure. He wanted me small. The moment I sat down, he pushed his phone across the table. "The payment deadline is tonight," he said. "Fix the card." Susan folded her hands. "The children have already packed." There were no children going. Olivia touched her hair. "I scheduled work around this trip. If we lose the booking, I lose income." I looked around the table. Who here believed I was going too? No one answered. Dad leaned back. "That is not the issue. It is exactly the issue." I placed the resort confirmation on the table. My name was on the original booking. 7 days before the last dinner, it was removed. Susan's face changed. I slid the next page toward her. "Your email approved the change." She glanced down, then away. "We had to rearrange rooms. You removed me. Then you told the resort to keep my card for the final payment." Dad slapped his palm against the table. "You agreed to help. I agreed to join a family vacation. You agreed to pay the deposit because you told me I was included." Olivia rolled her eyes. "You can afford it." "Emma." I turned toward her. "That is not permission." I opened the folder and laid out the payments and bills Rachel had helped organize over the last few years. This account covered almost $20,000 in family expenses. Dad laughed once. It sounded forced. "You offered. For some of it." "Yes." I pointed to the first group: car repairs, medical costs, flights to visit relatives. Those were gifts. Then I pointed to the rest: spa appointments, clothes, a hotel weekend, a birthday dinner I was not invited to. Jason picked up one page. He looked at Olivia. "You told me your dad paid for this." Olivia's face went pale. "That is what I thought. The charge is under your name," I said. She crossed her arms. "Dad said Emma never cared about little things." "Did you know I was removed from this trip?" She said nothing. Jason asked again. "Did you know Olivia looked down?" "Yes, but I thought she would still pay." "She always does." The room went quiet. Not shocked quiet. Exposed quiet. Aunt Ruth lowered her glass. "Richard," she said. "You told us Emma changed her mind after promising to sponsor everyone." Dad's jaw tightened. "This family has helped her all her life." "You raised your daughter," I said. "That was not a loan." His face turned red. "After everything I spent on you, you owe this family something." I leaned forward. "How much does it cost to be called your daughter?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Then his voice hardened. "If you do not reopen that card, you are not welcome in this house again." I felt the old fear rise. Then it passed. "You already told me I was not family," I said. "The difference is, this time I believed you." I stood. "The card is canceled. The $6,000 will not be paid. Any charges I did not approve are being reviewed. You can still take the trip." Susan blinked. "How pay for it?" Olivia stood too. "You are ruining everything." "No," I said. "I did not cancel your vacation. I stopped financing my own exclusion." I placed my napkin beside the plate, exactly where I had left it before. Then Daniel and I walked out, behind me. Dad stared at the unpaid balance like it had betrayed him, but the card had not betrayed him. I had simply stopped doing it to myself. The family did not lose the entire trip. They lost the version built around my money. The beachfront suite was canceled first, then the private boat tour, then the spa package Olivia planned to film. Dad used his savings to keep 3 regular rooms and shorten the trip by 4 days. Susan told relatives I had humiliated him. Olivia posted vague quotes about betrayal. Dad said nothing to me. For 2 weeks, the silence felt like punishment. Then it felt like space. Aunt Ruth called on Sunday. "I owe you an apology," she said. I stood at my kitchen window, watching rain gather along the glass. for laughing for believing him before asking you. She told me Dad claimed I promised to sponsor the vacation, then changed my mind because I was jealous of Olivia. I thought he was joking at dinner, Ruth said. I did not know they had removed you. She did not add an excuse. That mattered. I accepted it. Jason was not as forgiving with Olivia. He had believed Richard paid for their upgrades. When he learned I covered dinners, clothes, and travel costs they both used, he asked Olivia to repay her share. She resisted. Then Jason showed her the messages where she asked Susan to keep my card attached after my name disappeared from the booking. Their marriage did not end, but something cracked. Olivia had to explain why she believed my silence meant consent. Meanwhile, Laura helped me review the recent charges. I did not dispute the car repair I offered to cover. I did not ask for gifts back. I did not turn generosity into a weapon. But several newer charges had been made without my knowledge. The bank reversed some. Others were too old or complicated to recover. I had to accept that nearly $20,000 would not magically return. It was an expensive lesson, but it was the last one they would buy with my name. Dad stayed silent for 3 months. Some nights, I still checked my phone. That was the hardest part of setting a boundary. The person who hurt you can still be the person you wish would call and finally understand. One evening, Daniel found me holding the card over the trash can. You do not need a ceremony, he said. I think I do. I cut through the magnetic strip. The sound was small. The relief was not. 2 weeks later, Dad called. For 1 second, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said his truck needed repairs and asked whether I could put the bill on another card. I closed my eyes. No. He went quiet. So, this is who you are now? No, I replied. This is who I was before you taught me that love came with receipts. I ended the call. Olivia messaged me a month later. She said she had grown used to me paying and never stopped to ask whether I wanted to. Then she added that Dad and Susan made it seem normal. I wrote back, "We can talk when your apology does not need the word but." She did not respond. 6 months after the dinner, Daniel and I used my points for a trip to California. We stayed in a small hotel near the water. The room had thin walls, faded curtains, and a coffee maker that hissed like it was angry. It was perfect. No one asked me to upgrade anything. No one handed me a hidden bill. At dinner, Daniel asked whether I felt guilty that my family had to shorten their vacation. I looked at the ocean beyond the window. No, I said. For the first time, I paid for a trip I was actually invited to. I had not lost my family when I blocked that card. I had stopped paying for the illusion that they had saved me a seat. Generosity is not a contract, and raising a child does not create a lifetime debt. My family wanted my money, my planning, and my silence, but not my presence. Blocking that card did not make me cruel. It made the truth impossible to ignore. Sometimes boundaries feel like betrayal only to people who benefited from your lack of them. If you have ever been treated like family only when someone needed something, you are not alone. Share your story in the comments. Send this video to someone who needs it, and subscribe so you do not miss the next story.